Hi, Kat.
Oh, hey, John.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, too.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hold
it's
on.
been a long day. Not going to lie. I want to get that right out there, out the gate.
Okay.
People understand my state of mind, because what's more important to understand, Kat, than my state of mind?
I mean, it will help to inform the rest of this
It
podcast.
very well may. Very well may.
It might explain your behavior later.
It could. But you're doing well. I just want to establish that we're making sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Good.
You know, John. What do I got to complain about? You know.
Oh, Kat. Really?
I mean, I try not to complain. I try to stay pretty positive. You know.
Yeah. No, I try that as well, but sometimes I lose. But we should probably before we start complaining or complaining
Yes.
about complaining or talking about how we don't
Okay.
complain, we should tell people what we're doing here, just in case
Okay.
they're unaware.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, Kat, what are we doing here?
Oh, we are recording a podcast.
And the name of the podcast.
My mistake. The podcast.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I always think of that as
Right?
sort of metadata. Like, you don't have to say it because people know it's a podcast if they're here.
Right, but isn't our Facebook like My Mistake Podcast or something like that?
My Mistake, the podcast, is our Facebook page.
John's already pissed.
And then
John's
My
already
Mistake
pissed.
17 is our Twitter handle. And
Great.
At My Mistake, the podcast, or at My Mistake Podcast is our Instagram.
And Gmail is My Mistake Podcast at gmail.com.
Because we're not great at marketing, and we didn't sit down and make sure everything would be exactly the same. Because the problem with it is you don't always know if you're going to be able to get the same name on different platforms. And as a matter of fact, we were not able to get that same name.
that was the case.
So that's why it's all different.
It's fine.
We like to challenge our mistakers out there.
Yeah. Why make it easy?
Mm-hmm. Most people have one dominant platform anyway, I think.
Yeah. What do we have? One dominant platform?
No. I mean, a listener might have one. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we're lackluster on all platforms, I think is basically
Exactly.
because,
Equally insufficient.
equally mediocre. We aspire to mediocrity. As far as our marketing goes, now our podcast is stellar.
Oh yeah. Come on.
What do we do on our podcast, Kat?
John, we tell funny stories, generally about mistakes. Mistakes that you and I have made, mistakes that people have made in the past in a historical context.
Mm-hmm.
And we call those hysterical mistakes.
We do call them that.
And sometimes we have guests on and talk about their
Right.
mistakes.
So who do we have on today, Kat?
Well, John, we have two guests today.
Oh, great. Two. That's unusual.
They are a podcast host team.
Oh, really?
They host a podcast called My Mistake. It's John and Kat from My Mistake.
Wait a minute.
Welcome on the show, guys. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kat. Great to see you,
Awesome.
John. You're looking good.
Kat, how you doing? Oh, I'm really good. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
You're a weirdo.
We could just do that. What if we just did that?
Maybe we cut that and we actually do an episode where we interview ourselves and each other. I like it.
That'd be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. We'd have to come up with some mistakes, though.
Yeah.
And they'd be meta mistakes of our...
Oh, you know what we do? We just we use an old episode
Yeah,
and we just cut in
I like it.
the story, and then we cut in us being like, "Oh my god, that's crazy."
This is upcycling. That's what that is.
She was lactating. That's insane. Yeah.
Oh, no. That's a true callback, people. You should check out the back catalog.
Fucking is.
It's nasty.
Oh god.
So we were talking about complaining, right?
Yes, John. Please.
Yeah, I would
Do you have
like to.
anything complain
I
about.
have a bit of a rant. Okay. And the problem is that we live in a time, Kat. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I mean, I hadn't thought about it, but you're right.
Technically, we live in a place as well.
Also true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's time and there's space and there's all this stuff that's happening. And here's the thing: when you have lived as charmed a life as I have, it can rubs some people the wrong way to hear a person as privileged as myself complain.
Okay.
And I'd just like to tell anyone who might be bothered by the fact that a white male of a certain age who, has lived a fairly charmed life. Anybody who would be bothered by hearing that person complain, tough shit. Here's what I have to complain about. Yesterday, Kat.
Yes.
I woke up, I don't know, I guess about 7:30, whatever. And the reason that I woke up is because being as privileged as I am and living in Southern California, where there is a remarkably large and inexpensive labor force, I employ a landscaper who mows my lawn, weeds my, various areas and takes care of the plants and does all that stuff.
Okay.
Right? Now, coming from the Midwest, that was a hard pill to swallow. Because I thought, I'm going to buy a lawnmower. I'm going to take care of this stuff like my dad did and all this stuff. And then I said, it's how cheap? Wait.
Exactly.
I could, it's a lot cheaper than a lawnmower, frankly, for a while anyway, to have somebody come and do the stuff. And so we inherited our guy who does our landscaping from the previous owners of our house.
It's common.
It's pretty common
thing.
They come with the house, right? Yeah. So, and this guy and I, it's been a little strained at times. There's a communication gap because we do not share a language in which we are both very fluent. So yeah. Anyway, there have been things that have happened. And a thing happened yesterday morning about 8 a.m.
Oh, no.
My wife, Michelle, and I were laying in bed, both awake, but on our phones. You know how you do that thing. You're laying next to each other in bed, but you're both on your phones.
100%.
And all of a sudden, both of our phones just went, You're connected to Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is not connected to the internet. So I instantly thought to myself, there's an area that our landscaper has to trim every 3 weeks or so. And it's rather close to our utility cable that comes from the utility pole behind our house down to our house. Wouldn't it be awful, Kat? Wouldn't it be awful if by accident our landscaper had cut that line? Especially since my job is entirely dependent on the internet. And I'm not frankly comfortable going into coffee shops yet where I could use their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that would be pretty awful.
Yeah. So I went outside and darned if that wasn't exactly the case. The line had been cut. Now, as has happened a couple of other times when where something had not been done correctly or there was a problem, my landscaper, he speaks enough English that his English is better than my Spanish. Okay. I will definitely give him that. But once again, something went wrong. And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," or, "Oh, that's too bad." Instead, he read the riot act to his guy who works with him in Spanish and just was really, really reading him out. And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, okay, well, that's not really making anything better." And then he said he's going to pay you for that. And I'm I don't even know if it's going to cost any money to do the thing, but I'm going to lose a day of work, at least a day, however long it's going to take for my cable company to come out and replace that line. Yeah. So, it was a bad scene, right? So that was, that all happened. And so I came in and Michelle and I talked about it and we were really upset and this is not great. So I'm okay, my number one concern is how am I going to do my job? Because as timing would have it, there are two other guys who, frankly, if I'm honest, they're both much better at doing what we all do than I am, but they're the only other two guys who do kind of really close to what I do. And they both had the day off. yesterday.
Of course.
So it was understood that I was going to be, I was going to be the guy.
Johnny on the spot.
That's right. The go-to guy. So I thought to myself, all right, well, this is going to be okay, because what I'll do is I'll use my personal hotspot on my cell phone, and that will allow me to connect my laptop to the internet, and I'll be able to do my day that way. Right?
Great.
It's not going to be the fastest internet. It's not going to be the best, but I'll have connectivity, right? So I go to my phone and I go to my personal hotspot, and it says set up personal hotspot instead of saying,
don't encourage her, John.
This is your personal hotspot. It says set up personal hotspot.
Okay.
So when I tap on said link, it goes to a thing that says that I need to change my plan if I want to use personal hotspot. Now, here's the thing, Kat. I've been using personal hotspot for like a good 6 or 7 years. Like,
sure.
Not even a thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's another thing that's important to know is Michelle and I we went 5 years on the same iPhones. We waited for 5 years before we upgraded our iPhones, which normally we used to do every 2 years. And we were like, but I honestly didn't see enough to have us do that. And we're an iOS family. Like we do that. Some people, they're Android, we're iOS. It's a thing.
Yep.
So, I called up our service provider.
Okay.
Their name rhymes with Shmee, Shmee, and Shmee. And
gosh, I wish I could figure that out.
I know, right? It's a tough one. And I call them up and I'm like, hey, what's up? Looks like I don't have personal hotspot and I really need it. And they're like, you've never had personal hotspot. And I'm like, au contraire. I can tell you as a matter of fact that I indeed did have personal hotspot once upon a time. And I'm not sure why I don't anymore. And I said, maybe when we got our new phones, did the plan change? And the representative said, no, you've been on the same plan the whole time. And I'm like, that seems weird because I thought I remembered that we changed plans. So she said, no, your plan does not include personal hotspot. And I'm like, well, I have been using personal hotspot for a long time. And so I would like to know why I don't have it. And what's the deal? So she said, let me go talk to my manager. She goes and talks to the manager. She comes back and she says, well, the only thing that we have that tells us that you have a personal hotspot is you saying it. I'm like, so you're saying I'm lying that I never had it. She's like, well, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm like, no, you're pointedly not saying I'm lying, but you're saying the only proof that you have is that I'm telling you.
Right.
So that means I'm lying. I said, so I would like to know, because this is garbage service. Like, I've had this thing. I've been using it. It's gone. I haven't used it in a while because it's been the pandemic. So I never left home. So I always had Wi-Fi. Right. Mm-hmm. So anyway, she goes back and talks to the manager again. And this time she comes back and she says, okay, do you want personal hotspot on both lines or just on one? I'm like, duh. Okay. I would like it on both. Thank you very much. She goes, okay. And she says, I'll be right back. And she goes away for 5 minutes. She comes back and she says, nope, you can't have it because it's not on your plan. I'm like, you just asked me if I wanted it on one or both. And so,
yikes.
Yeah, essentially, I don't want to belabor this. Everybody has their own issues with this kind of thing, but yeah.
So frustrating.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, especially because when you buy a new phone these days, you're paying it off, a little bit at a time and it's zero interest. So why would you not do that? Like pay it off over time. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, oh, if I want to leave and go to another provider, I have to pay it all off in one lump sum and plus like a penalty because I guess it's, whatever. So I said, okay.
It hurts their feelings when you leave.
It does. It hurts their tender fifis. And, so I'm like, okay, well, what's it going to take for me to get personal hotspot? They're like, well, you can't just add that a la carte. I'm like, I bet I could, but you're not going to let me. I bet you could do that. Like that would be a thing. That you
a couple keystrokes.
Yeah. They'd create like a weird custom plan that would work, and then it would, but it would only I would have it. But they're not going to do that for me because they already don't like me. So no, there's She tells me it'll be $30 more per month. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot, first of all. And is that going to include any additional taxes or fees or anything like that? And she looks and she goes, well, you've got 27 days left in your billing cycle, so it's going to cost a lot more. I'm like, wait a minute.
What does that mean?
I don't understand, Kat. Like, I mean, it's a pretty simple prorate to say you've got 4 days in on your billing cycle. So you're going to pay for that much for that time. And then you just pay this much more for another thing. It's math. Computers are really good at it. And my understanding is that Shmee and Shmee has a lot of computers. So, yeah. So I just went off, Kat. I just went off and off and off. And that was it. So I got off the phone with them. I'm like, because it's like, I'm just like, the second this phone is paid off, I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to Schmerizon.
Sure. Shmeesh Mobile. Shmeesh Mobile's not bad.
Shmeesh Mobile. I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. Maybe. Anyway, so then I go and I call my internet service provider, expecting the worst, right? Like just going like, is it going to be a week that I can't work?
You should.
Am I just going to lose my job over this?
A couple of months, maybe you'll get somebody to come out.
If you're lucky. Because during the pandemic, it was kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I called, and it was about this is about 8:45 in the morning. They tell me we can have a guy out there by 11. I'm like, amazing! You gotta be kidding me! You gotta
That's
be
incredible.
Kidding me. And this is not. I'm not going to even like hide that. This was Spectrum, and I'm going to say I've not always had the best experience with Spectrum. Mm-hmm. In this case, frickin' A, they were on it. It happened.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, it was super great. So then that I had to do everything on my phone, like messaging people at work on my phone and telling everybody what had happened and blah, blah, blah. The guy came out, he climbed up the pole, he hung a new line. Everything was great.
Amazing. I
know, right? It's amazing how I can drag out a story.
No.
And so that got fixed. So now, Kat, we got to figure out what we're going to do about the situation because there's a special reason that I'm going to tell you in a minute why we really did have to deal with the situation of like the root cause here.
Okay.
So I talked to my wife and I'm like, we got to do something about the landscaper.
Oh boy.
And she's like, I'm on it. She found a couple of people online who looked good. She called them up. A guy came out before even the Spectrum guy got here. She interviewed him. He gave her a quote. She talked to me about it. He's hired. So this guy, we got a new landscaper.
Boom.
Right? Exactly.
Love that.
So now I have to fire the old landscaper.
Yeah, you do.
And this is where I'm going to tie in the whole thing, Kat, because do you want to know why I can tell this story on a podcast called My Mistake?
Why? Because there's some sort of mistakes are involved?
Exactly. Oh, okay, and the mistake is that, Kat, this wasn't the first time that the landscaper had cut our internet line.
Oh, no.
It was the second time.
Oh, no.
In like 4 years that I like basically had no internet because the bougainvillea needed to look good.
Oh, no.
And so that was it. It's like, okay, if this happens twice, I'm like, it's not a 3 strikes. It's a 2 strikes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so the mistake was that I didn't do this the last time, right? That's what's up. I made my own bed and I'm laying in it and there's not going to be any weeds in it.
No, there's not.
Have you a new motivated guy?
Have you fired your landscaper?
I have not.
Oh boy. How many days do you have?
I have until Wednesday and today is Thursday.
John, do it. You should do it soon and then you don't have to worry about it.
I'm going to do it tomorrow. My real problem though, Kat, is like, what kind of a comedy of errors might ensue if I try to tell this guy that he's fired and he doesn't really understand what I'm saying? Now, in the past, I have gone to Google Translate and typed in what I wanted to say and then texted it to him.
Yeah.
But I feel like firing somebody via text is kind of like breaking up with somebody via text. But in this case,
I think you're okay.
I think I'm okay this way.
Because if you call, are you going to be able to talk to this guy?
Not well.
No, he's going to show up on Wednesday and be like, I got your message. Look, I have these trees you wanted me to plant.
Yeah. And the new guy is so good. He's coming in on the same day.
Of course he is.
So it would be like battle of the landscapers.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Be Thunderdome for landscapers.
Blowers
Two
at each other?
landscapers enter. One landscaper leaves.
Well, I have two stories
Oh,
to
you
counter
do?
to counter your story.
All right. Well, hit me.
Well, when Leah bought this house, we found a great gardener when he showed up. Sometimes he was really hard to he wasn't coming every time, every on the regular day. Sometimes it'd be weeks before we'd see him, weeks in between visits. When he did show up, we loved it, but it was just we couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
And his phone, he kept like changing numbers, so we could never get a hold of him to tell him that he shouldn't come anymore because he's been fired. So we found a new guy.
Right.
And he came. He started coming on the same day as the old guy.
Right.
So here's Boss. We call him Boss because that's what he told us to call him. Here's here's Boss doing his thing. Here comes Javier, old guy, shows up. Awkward, John. Awkward.
Very awkward. I get a whole good, the bad, and the ugly. Like and there's
Exactly.
Just the eyes looking back and forth. They both raised their weed whackers. So that was awkward and terrible. And then my second. So don't let that happen to you, John. Take care of it. Yep, it's going to be taken care of. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then this is probably maybe 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Leah and I both were working from home remotely, very dependent upon internet.
Right.
We'd increased our internet service so that we could both. She needed a lot of bandwidth for her setup, and I didn't as much, but we needed to be beefy for her.
For sure.
So very dependent upon the internet.
We need the fat pipes.
Yes, we need them. We need them fat pipes.
Them fat pipes.
Around that same time, we were getting the house appraised for a refinance. We refied. It's a lot of very personal information.
So it happens. The homeowners in the audience, they're going to know.
They were like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So before the appraisal guy came, we wanted to spruce up the house a bit. So we had a power washer come and power wash the outside of the house, and it cleans it up. You don't have to paint, but it looks better.
Mm-hmm.
And power washer's outside doing his thing. And all of a sudden, Leah and I both, internet gone, disappeared, not there anymore. So we're both freaking.
I'm not sure I understand, Kat. Could you,
John? The internet stopped working.
So there was no internet.
John, there was no internet.
Okay.
And so we, by process of elimination, assumed power washer guy. So we walked out there, and he has in fact disconnected the cable that's going into the house that carries the beautiful internet service. It's just it's hanging. We're like, oh, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I immediately call Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we can get somebody out there in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no, you don't understand. We work in television. This is serious.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be here yesterday.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So I'm calling our remote editing provider. I'm like, hey, do you guys have a private internet person or telecom person to send out? So I'm trying to figure out how to make this work. And meanwhile, sure. Leah goes outside and sticks the cable back in. And it's worked ever since. Problem solved, John.
Wait a minute. It wasn't cut. It was just pulled out, and she just shoved it back in.
It was not cut. It was sort of pulled out. So the connector was still in there, but you could see the bare copper wire.
Bare copper wire. Yeah.
So she stuck it back in and fiddled with it. Did you try taping the cable back together, John?
No, I did not.
Oh, Kat. See, maybe you should have done that.
If they didn't tell me they were going to be there in 2.5 hours, I would have tried anything.
Exactly.
I'd have stuck both ends in my mouth and sat there with it, just seeing what happened.
So there you have it. So there you go. Fun.
Yeah.
Internet.
Very fun.
Provider. Fun. All that stuff.
Fun
how long have you been with Shmee, and Shmee, by the way?
I have been with Shmee, and Shmee since I got my first iPhone in 2007. Mm-hmm.
You'd think they'd be nicer to you.
You'd think they would.
Yeah.
But Kat, surprisingly, you know what they don't give at Shmee, and Shmee?
What's that, John?
Fucks. They don't give any fucks.
They give no
how
fucks.
long you've been there. 0 fucks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's a
upsetting.
fact.
It's a fact.
Yes. That phrase is like so played out at this point that it's actually, I feel like I'm a hipster who's trying to revive 0 fucks.
Oh. Well, good luck with that. Maybe it'll work. Thank you.
I'm bringing it back.
Fetch
is going to happen.
We're going to pivot. Okay. This is an aggressive pivot. Yes, that's the pivot.
That's the pivot we're talking about.
Now, John.
Yes, Kat.
You and your lovely wife, Michelle, you guys, she is fantastic. Frankly, I don't know how you did it, John.
I don't either. I try not to question.
You guys went on a trip recently.
We did.
Where did you go? Remind us where you went.
We went to the Canyon Grande. Which is not a new dish at by the way, calling anything at Taco Bell a dish just seems wrong. There's a new product.
Yeah, exactly.
At Taco Bell called the Canyon Grande.
A new novelty is available.
Yes. Yeah. We went to the Grand Canyon.
You did.
We did.
And that is one of this country's great national parks.
Yeah, it's a natural wonder of the damn world.
There you go. And you had mentioned your sister had sent you an email or some sort of article explaining how people diet at that park.
Yes, I had mentioned that.
Did you get into that at all? Do you remember? Did you read that article? I'm sure you did.
I read that article. Yes, I did. Yep.
Yeah. How was that? How'd that go?
I mean, I didn't die, Kat.
That's great.
Yeah. No, well, the thing is, the article, the irony of it is that then we also got another post, and it happened on the day that episode of the podcast dropped, and it came from someone who's an avid listener of the podcast, who had clearly not listened to the podcast yet, because somebody else sent us a "You're gonna die at the Grand Canyon" link. Oh. And I love this person, and they're a wonderful person. But yeah, it was just, I wonder when they listened to the podcast, did they worry about the fact that they had clearly done the same thing as my sister that I then was complaining about?
And then they didn't mention it clearly.
Nope. But anyway, here's the thing. There is a hiking trail at the Grand Canyon. It is called the Bright Angel Trail. And it's a wonderful hiking trail. I mean, it's a nice broad, you feel safe enough, but you're also like right out there, Kat. Like before I say anything else, like I had never been to the Grand Canyon, and I don't even know what I could compare the Grand Canyon to.
Right.
But this is my poor attempt that I made trying to tell somebody what it was like. Have you seen those photoshopped photos where it's like a realistic scene here on Earth, like maybe in San Francisco, and there's an Imperial battle cruiser in the sky?
Totally.
Yeah, and it's so big you can only actually kind of see part of it at a time. That's how it felt to look at but not in a picture, like it's real.
Right.
It's so big.
Yeah, you can't comprehend it.
No, my brother-in-law told me an interesting thing. He told me, when you look out at the ocean, it feels like you can just see forever, right? In fact, the horizon that you see on the ocean is not normally more than like 3 miles before the curvature of the Earth takes it away.
Oh, interesting.
But when you're on the south rim of the Grand Canyon, looking at the north rim of the Grand Canyon, it's like 12 miles, and you can still see it.
Huh. That's crazy.
That was interesting. I may have gotten those numbers mixed up, but it's
fine.
I believe it. But yeah, so, and it's just so big, Kat. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's like a hole. It's like, but no, it's not a hole. They're like like mesas inside of it, and different colors. And it's so funny because like I knew about Southwestern decor and colors, and I never really put it together, like, and I'm like, oh, all those colors that were in my towels that I got as wedding gifts for my first wedding in 1993. Now I know why they chose those colors, because I see all of them here.
Yeah.
There's green and like orange and coral and like,
it's unreal. Really.
It is
unreal.
Yep.
Well, it's a beautiful place.
It is.
And John, the Grand Canyon is our deadliest park. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's number 1.
Wow.
So I found this article called outsideonline.com.
Okay.
They just published this in April.
Okay.
So there's the top 5 deadliest parks in the country.
Okay. And this is the number 1.
Number 1 is Grand Canyon.
Okay.
And mostly it is from heat exhaustion or some sort of heat illness or something. Or dehydration.
I am not surprised. Now, my wife and I don't claim that we're brilliant, but we might be because we got to the Grand Canyon at about 6:45 in the morning.
Smart.
So, well, yeah, I mean, we were like, yeah. And we went twice. The first time we were out by 10 a.m. So before it even really started to get stinking hot, because it's the desert, people. It's Arizona in the summertime.
Yeah.
So
very
hot. What was also great, we drove directly into the park, no problem. When we left at 10 a.m. the first time we went to the park, there was a line for about 5 miles of cars just waiting to get into the park. It was crazy.
Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great tip then. Get up, get up as early as you can and get in
there
and get
early,
the
man.
fuck out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John, the number 2 deadliest park in this country is Yosemite.
Yosemite. Okay.
Yeah. I should have let you have guessed. I'm sorry. It's Yosemite.
That's okay. It's funny because we're going there in November.
This is great. Perfect.
We're just going to hit all the top death parks.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And what would you guess is the biggest killer of dumb tourists at Yosemite? What type of death?
I'm going to guess people trying to like rock climb or scale a mountain and they fall off.
Ding, 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 John.
Sweet. Falls
are the biggest killer at Yosemite.
Okay.
Number 3 on the list. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're going to get it.
Okay. Okay.
It's in the southern part of this country.
Southern part of this country, and it's a national park.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Utah has 5 of them, but I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think of Utah as being southern.
Definitely not.
So, Everglades National Park.
No, but that's a good answer.
Okay, it's in the south.
Yep. It is. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
It's Great Smoky Mountains.
Oh, okay.
It's in North Carolina and Tennessee.
Right.
And you might not guess this, but the greatest killer in Great Smoky Mountains National Park is car accidents.
Okay. I would not have guessed that would be the case inside of a national park.
And so it's a combination of, it has the most visitors of any other park.
Okay. You'd think there'd be too much traffic for people to be going fast enough to die in a car wreck.
Apparently 12 million visitors in 2020, which is interesting. And it has
never mind.
It has over 384 miles of roads.
Okay. And
so, you can imagine people are getting hit crossing the road. People are getting into car accident. Like cars are killers. Watch out for the cars in Great Smoky Mountains. John, number 4 on the list is Sequoia and Kings Canyon in California.
Really? I have camped there many times.
Ah. Mm-hmm. How would you guess people die most often in that park?
In Sequoia. Wow. That's weird. I hope they're not trying to climb the damn trees. Yeah, I don't know. What would it be? Smoke inhalation?
No. Nope. It's also falls and mountaineering deaths. Yeah.
Wow. I guess there's some geography there for sure.
There is. As you know, John, the highest peak in the lower 48 states is Mount Whitney, which is located
Of course I knew. Kat, what are you saying? You didn't think I knew that?
Oh, I knew you knew it.
All right. Okay. Sure.
And rounding out number 5, do you want to guess what the 5th most deadliest park in this country is?
Am I not getting any hints this time? I just have to get it straight out, right?
I think it's our first park. It was our first national park.
Oh. our first. Wow. Okay. I don't know why I thought that was Yosemite, but so I'm trying to think now. I got Teddy Roosevelt in my head. And so it's not Yellowstone. Yellowstone. There you go. All right. Oh, I bet I know how people die there too.
Tell me.
It's the hot springs, right? They go in, they think they can get into the hot water and it's going to be comfy, and they boil themselves to death.
That is how people have died there.
Oh, it's not the top.
But it's not the most popular way to die.
Okay. What's the most popular way to die?
Again, it's motor vehicle crashes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you get a little everything at Yellowstone. You do get some people dying in the hot springs. There's some animal attacks. Mm-hmm. There are some falls. Okay. It's really, kind of like a buffet of ways to die.
Especially for the animals.
And listen, I thought, what is a better way to celebrate the summer, celebrate John going to a national park? Let's talk about how people have died in Yellowstone National Park.
I love it. Kat. It warms my heart.
So when I first thought of doing this, I thought it was going to be a really fun kind of, our kind of fun idea.
Some of our most fun stuff is when we're talking about the most morbid shit in the world and laughing our asses off about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I don't know. This might be a little darker than we're normally used to.
Darker than death in national parks?
So I stole heavily from a book called Death in Yellowstone.
Okay.
Accidents and Foolhardiness in the First National Park. Mm-hmm. It is by Lee H. Whittlesey. And
That's not a real name, Ken.
I swear to God, it is.
No, it's not a real name.
And if you're looking for a real bummer of a read,
is it going to be worse than the Donner Party? I mean, let's be honest.
It is, because it's like because the Donner Party, tragic as it is, those people have been gone for a long time.
Oh,
some of these stories are a little more current and a little more real.
Oh boy, wait, more real than eating people?
Well, you can imagine yourself being in these people's position. Okay. It's hard to imagine, being in the frontier, wearing a wimple.
I've worn a wimple many times.
You have actually.
I have.
I've seen you wearing a wimple.
I was a handmaiden for Halloween 2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
And you looked fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Let's just jump right into it, as they say. All right, John. So, in July of 1981, these two dudes from California, one of them was from La Cañada, which is not far from where I am now. Here.
It's a close couple with Flint Ridge.
It is, exactly. They're best friends.
They totally
are. So this guy, David from La Cañada, and his buddy, Ronald, from Thousand Oaks.
Oh, T.O. Strong.
T.O. Strong. They decided to go to Yellowstone. They're going to check out the fountain paint pot area. It's thermal area.
Right.
It was a bit of a spoiler when you mentioned that earlier.
Oh, well, shit. I should have known in advance not to talk about all the vast knowledge
You're fine.
Of the hot water.
It's my fault for asking you. So David brought his dog with him. Oh. He brought his dog. No, sorry, not David. Ronald. Ron bought his dog. Mm-hmm. He was either a large Mastiff or a Great Dane.
Was his name Oscar? Mayer?
No, it was Moosey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know why I asked if that was his name, Kat?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you after. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay, great. Okay. Mm-hmm. I hate to be spoiled. So unfortunately, John, Moosey got out of the car.
Oh, dear.
And jumped into nearby Celestine Pool, which happens to be a hot spring. Mm-hmm. And it was measured that day at 202 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So definitely don't ask me what happens to the dog at the end of the story, because I'm not going to tell you.
Well, so do you know what OSCARMAYER is?
No.
It's a hot dog, Kat.
Oh, gosh. I'm not good at spelling on the fly.
It's Oscar Mayer.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. Moosey Meyer.
Oh,
So Ron wanted to get his dog out.
Yeah.
So he's getting ready to jump in, and his buddy Dave and a bystander are both like, dude, do not do that.
Don't
go in there.
Typically it's a bad idea to go into water after someone who has already clearly, expired.
Yeah. I mean, yes, there's many. I mean, in this particular case, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But even so, you're right. Like, it's hard. You might end up drowning yourself, or
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, Kat, that we're going to get more complaints about this episode than anyone we've ever had? Because normally we talk about people dying, but now we're talking about a dog.
But
people hate it. People hate hearing about dogs dying.
Well, listen, the good news is Moosey is fine, and he is fine today.
Oh my goodness.
He lives on a farm in Montana.
Upstate. He lives upstate at a farm upstate with all the other dogs.
Mm-hmm. He's living his best life.
Go. Thank you for saving our ratings, Kat.
Mm-hmm. So they're like, don't go in there. And he's quoted as saying, like hell, I won't. Several more people yelled at him not to go in, but Ronald took 2 steps into the pool, then dove head first.
Oh, Ronald.
Into the boiling water. One witness described it as a flying swimming pool type dive.
Oh God.
He was all fucking in, man.
Yeah. It's a horrible way to go.
It's not good, John.
Parboiled to death in a national park. Probably tens of miles from a hospital, even if it mattered, which it probably didn't at 200 degrees.
Yeah.
Oy.
So
he's at the farm upstate with Moosey, is what you're saying.
So, John, they pull them out.
Oh my God. Really?
His entire body was horribly burned, and his skin was already starting to peel off. This is very graphic.
Yeah.
And a witness guessed that he was blind because his eyes appeared to be totally white.
For sure. Yeah. That would be a thing.
Here's a horrible little fact. Later that day, near the spring, rangers found 2 large pieces of skin shaped like human hands.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you glad I told you that?
I'm guessing that's because the hands were on the ground, and then like when they pulled him up, the skin just stayed where it was. Yeah.
So he was burned. He had 3rd-degree burns over 100% of his body.
Yes.
Including his head.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I learned. So this is one of many stories about this happening. So one thing I learned about people who do this, either by accident or like this guy did on purpose, is that it's enough to, it will kill you, but just not instantly.
Right.
So you'll be alive for hours and hours and maybe days in extreme discomfort and pain.
Right. Well, the good news is that burning like this will kill most of the nerves. So you're not going to have a lot of like topical pain. But
right.
You're not going to be feeling great, Kat.
No. It's not great, John.
Nope.
And so to that point, apparently he was able to talk with his caretakers and he was in no pain. But so when they first got him into a hospital, he asked the nurses, "Could you not cut my belt off when you cut off my pants? Because I'm going to need that later."
Oh, Ronald. No,
I know.
You're not.
In fact,
no,
he didn't,
not.
John.
Yeah.
He died the next morning in Salt Lake City Hospital. And in the men's truck later that day, rangers found that the park's warning literature and pamphlets about not getting near the hot springs was in fact unread, sitting in the truck. So. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not funny, Kat.
I mean,
did you know that hot spring deaths have occurred much more commonly in Yellowstone National Park than grizzly bear deaths have?
I mean, Kat, when you asked me to guess what the method, what the mode of demise was,
That was your top guess.
I guessed that one. So I'm not surprised.
So out of 20 known human deaths from hot springs in Yellowstone, 8 have been children.
Ooh.
These children were not being closely supervised by their parents in dangerous thermal areas at the times of their deaths. John, I think the big takeaway here.
Don't take your kids to Yellowstone.
Don't take your kid. Don't take your dog. No. Don't take your dog.
Maybe just don't go to Yellowstone. I mean,
or don't. At the end of this, you're not going to want to go to Yellowstone. But don't take your dog.
Yeah.
If you take your kid, put that kid on a leash. I don't care how old they are.
Yeah.
Fucking hold on to your children.
Put them in a baby Bjorn. I don't care if they're 12. Like, just have them strapped to you somehow.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on.
Moving on. Tell me some more grisly details about Yellowstone, Kat.
John, how is this going so far?
It's going great. I feel good about this.
All right, I gotta find the next section. I will tell you, I skipped a lot of sections in here because this is like, we don't have to talk about this. There's no way to make this funny.
I love how you're setting up the sequel. That's great, Kat. Nice work.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to do this for every park. So we're starting with Yellowstone today.
Perfect.
Okay. So, John.
Yes.
In 1971, at Fountain. Have you been to Yellowstone?
I have not.
It's beautiful.
I've never been to Yosemite. I've never been to Yellowstone. I've never been to any of the 5 parks in Utah. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, you should go to Yellowstone.
I mean, what are you trying to get rid of me? I'm not making John soup. Just
don't make a swan dive in a goddamn thermal pool.
Wow.
It's the easiest thing to do when you go there is not to jump into Old Faithful or something. Don't do that.
Maybe don't do that. Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so this guy named Marvin. First red flag.
His name is not Ramen. It's Marvin. Just making sure.
John.
What?
He decided to go and visit Yellowstone with his wife and 3 children.
Okay. Didn't we already declare that you should not bring your offspring to... Well, I guess he didn't hear it. It's okay. It was 1971.
That's true. He's already broken the first rule. So, Schrader and his wife and 3 children spotted a solitary buffalo, lying down in a meadow. So Marvin decides he wants to get a picture of it.
Okay.
So he walked within 20 feet of the animal.
Rule number 2. Let sleeping buffalo lie far away from you.
The 1-ton bison stood up.
Yes, he did.
Charged Marvin.
Of course.
And tossed him more than 12 feet into the air.
Sure. You
do. John, buffalo, they have these horns on their heads,
They do, Kat.
This particular bison, it's not funny, Kat, used his horns to, I'm not going to get into details, gravely injure Marvin.
I'm going to ask you straight up.
I'm going to skip some
Did
stuff.
he make his secondary sexual characteristics tertiary? Is that what happened here?
No, he just ripped into his abdomen and did some damage to his internal organs.
So he eviscerated him.
He did.
He disemboweled him with the horns. Okay.
And the worst part is, John, he died in front of his family. His family saw him die.
I mean, yes. Here's the thing. When you're dying that way, like disemboweled with your guts hanging out, like I don't think you care who the audience is. It's not like, what are you, embarrassed? Like,
no, I feel bad for his family though.
Okay. Yeah.
They had to watch it and then continue on with their vacation.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they did. They couldn't get the deposit back on the Airbnb, Kat. It's like, this was 1971.
I'm a horrible person, John. This is not. None of this is funny.
It is if you're us.
And so listen, there are several stories just like this where people want to get closer to buffalo specifically. And, John, these are wild animals. I know you know this, but apparently people need to be told this, that they're wild animals.
Yep.
You're in their backyard.
Indeed you are.
Don't get close to them.
No. There were squirrels at the Grand Canyon, Kat. I want you to know. And some of the hikers, they would take their little water bottles and they would fill up the little cap of their water bottle.
Sure.
And they would kneel down, and the little squirrels, they'd drink out of the little cap of the water bottle, Kat. It was adorable.
It's cute.
Yeah, it was probably wrong. I'm sure it's probably wrong.
It is wrong. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely not supposed to hand feed water to animals.
Well, I mean, here's what I said. I wasn't mad at anybody who I saw doing it. If they'd been giving them food like peanuts or something like that, it's different. But
that's
water,
bad too.
I mean, everything needs water, right?
It does. But what if that cute little squirrel has rabies?
Rabies?
And it bites you, and then you're going to die of rabies.
Here's the thing. We were wearing camelbacks. So it didn't matter to us because we didn't have any little water bottles with little water bottle caps. Well, and there was no way I was holding out my little suck straw for the and that's what I like to call my camelback.
Suck straw.
Yeah. For a squirrel to drink out of. Yeah, that was not me.
That's cool. All right. Well, listen, there's an entire chapter, a lengthy chapter on grizzly bears. We're not going to talk about it.
Oh, come on, Kat.
John, it's not funny. Some just horrible stories.
Okay, fine. I guess,
so, but I will do this. I'll give you the warning that this gentleman is trying to relate to people. If you're going to Yellowstone, don't hike alone. You bring bear spray,
right,
and make lots of noise.
Yeah,
because everyone who was horribly killed by grizzly bears in this story, were by themselves or with only one or two other people, which is fucked up. It's like, oh, don't hike alone. Bring like 4 friends with you.
Right.
It's like, well, that's hard to do.
It is. Who can all get time off of work at the same time like that?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, the best way to protect yourself against bears is to have pepper spray and to wear bells on your boots.
Exactly.
And I don't know if you know this, but like to check to see if there's a bear in the area. Do you know how to identify bear scat, Kat?
I do, because I watch Alone.
Okay, good. Well, because it's got bells in it and it smells like pepper.
That's a very good joke, John.
It's a very old joke. It's super hack for anybody who's ever gone camping in a place where there are bears. Because some dad always tells you that joke.
Sure. Some places there's even like a flyer posted.
Yeah.
That's like that. It's very funny, John. But anyway, since 2010, 8 people have been killed by grizzlies.
Okay,
in the Yellowstone.
11 years, 8 people. That's not even one a year, you know? I mean, those bears might be hungrier.
Fair enough. All right, I'm moving on to the next horrible way to die here.
Okay.
A second.
If there are enough of these stories, maybe we should just branch off and make a whole separate podcast. Or would that be a mistake?
That might be a mistake.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm closing in on this page number. Hold on.
Okay. I'm holding, bear down.
Boop. Bearing down.
Bearing down.
Okay.
Berenstain Bears.
So, there's an entire chapter in this book dedicated to people who have been poisoned at Yellowstone.
Okay. Interesting.
So, this guy named Mr. Bauer in 1927, he was the winter keeper at Old Faithful, which I'm guessing just means like he was there and make sure everything was okay. I don't know.
Like, how do you take care of Old Faithful?
You
take its temperature every other day. Make sure
maybe
it's normal for you. It's 300 degrees. It's normal for you.
You're fine. You're fine. So part of his duties, he would go to the springs above the hotel reservoir to clean out the growing vegetation along the stream that emptied into the reservoir.
Yeah, because you don't want too much nature in your national park.
Blah, gross.
Ugh, gross.
So he collected some roots and plants that were growing there, and he took them to his buddy Phillips, who he and his wife lived around there. And Phillips was like, "Yeah, these are turnips. These are wild turnips, and we're gonna eat these, and they're gonna be good." So Phillips, who was a park ranger naturalist at the time, so you'd think he knew what the fuck he was talking about.
I mean, it was 1927. People were still probably putting leeches on people. I don't know. It's hard to say.
So they that's a good point. So this guy Phillips and Bauer and his wife, they have a nice meal together. They're having a good time. They eat these, what they think are wild turnips.
Sure.
And they go about their business. He goes home. Bowers go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 a.m, the Bowers were awoken by waves of nausea and vomiting, which made them so sick they stayed indoors until the next night.
Okay.
Mrs. Bauer was practically a raving maniac until 4 a.m, vomiting continually and having convulsions just before daylight.
Wow.
And Mr. Bauer had smothering spells and was intensely sick to his stomach, but could not vomit.
That might be worse.
Right?
Yeah.
It is, actually. Yeah. It's painful.
Well, it's painful, and it also means you're not getting rid of whatever it is that's,
still in you.
Yep.
So the next day, Mr. Bauer went to his chicken coop and became very ill with chills.
Mm-hmm.
And both of the Bauers rested until 1 p.m., at which time they both had cold sweats.
Okay.
So what was weird, John, is that Phillips, the naturalist, he would always come over and they'd spend time together. He'd come over to the Bauers. I
think they were swingers, Kat.
They'd have, maybe.
I mean, it's like,
that's cool.
There probably weren't a lot of other people around.
Maybe.
Bringing a third, it can happen.
In the book, it just says they would talk and listen to the radio, but maybe that was just a euphemism for
That's a euphemism for
having sex.
Mm-hmm.
So the next night, Phillips didn't show up.
And surprise.
The Bauers were like, "Oh, we're supposed to fuck. Where's Phillips?" So Mr. Bauer crossed the several hundred yards of deep snow to get to the ranger station.
Right.
And the building was dark.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cold.
Okay.
And he found his buddy, Ranger Phillips, dead on the kitchen floor. He apparently died sometime earlier that morning. Phillips was lying on his back with one shoe unlaced and his clothing partly open. He apparently had his bed slippers in his hand when the attack occurred because they lay on the kitchen floor. Investigators found that he had apparently come out of the bedroom into the kitchen and fell forward, striking his head above his left eye on the table. Dirt on his hands indicated that he had crawled on the floor for a while, probably in agony, and exhibited vomiting and frothing at the mouth, which are characteristic of hemlock poisoning, John.
Yeah, hemlock. What? About which Socrates said, "I drank what?"
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Bad time. So apparently, water hemlock looks almost identical to wild turnips. So people, I don't care if you think you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't go around picking shit and eating it because it could be something that will kill you.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman by the name of Christopher McCandless.
Oh, yes, unfortunately.
Into the Wild. I think that was the name of the book.
You're right.
Yeah. Where, and weirdly, what he ate was what he thought was wild potatoes.
Right.
And the beautiful part of that was those wild potatoes, or what he thought they were way more insidious than just like killing you straight up. What they did was they made it so that it was impossible for you to derive nutrition from anything that you ate. Oof. Because they actually like shut that stuff down. So even if you ate like a full steak dinner after you eat those wild potatoes, it's not going to matter. You're still going to starve to death.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to pull any nutrition out of it. It's crazy and terrible. And
brutal.
That guy, we watch Alone. I think there have been 2 different quotes from Christopher McCandless on Alone. And I turned to my wife and I said, why are they putting quotes from a guy who died doing exactly what these people on this show are doing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I guess it's pertinent.
It is.
Germane.
Have you read the book?
Tito.
Into the
I
Wild?
have.
It's a fascinating book.
It is. It's
haunting.
Yeah. He was an interesting guy, very passionate, really wanted to get out into nature. I've also read things around the novel. The novel is kind of romantic. If you read around it, it's like less romantic, like everything, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean, real life is never cut and dried. There's always more to it.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Well, John,
Yes,
I got one more for you.
Oh, hit me.
Round this up here.
Mm-hmm.
Round this out. Okay. So, in 1924, Mr. and Mrs. Earl J. Dunn.
Isn't it crazy that people used to be that way?
Yeah, I'm like,
Mr.
wait,
and
what
Mrs.
is her name?
The guy's name.
Is her name even in
isn't
here?
important, Kat. Who is the husband? Who's the decision maker here?
Okay, they do give it to us, but
okay.
So we'll get there. So Mr. and Mrs. Earl J. Dunn of Minneapolis were visiting the canyon area on Sunday, July 13th, 1924. And this was in the area that they call the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone.
Okay, that feels like appropriation, I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, but this park is older. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Big canyon. Big Grand Canyon. But it's not the Grand Canyon.
Big hole. Mm-hmm.
So this guy and his wife, who was the former Miss Louise Thill, that's how they phrased it, former Miss Louise Thill. You tell us her name is Louise. So Louise Dunn.
Right.
Fucking stupid.
Louise Dunn, née Thill.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it.
Thank you.
So they were out, they were enjoying the view, and after obtaining a grand view of the canyon at Grand View, that's very redundant, sir. Whoever wrote this is an idiot. I have notes.
Probably written in 1928.
No, this is the second.
Had a grand view at the old Grand View.
This is the second edition of this book. This fucker should know better. Okay. So they've taken in the view there. Oh, this is so great. Everything's fantastic. They return to their Ford coupe.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn starts it up. They were parked at a spot about 50 feet north of Grand View, which I'm guessing is when you walk out and look at the Grand View.
Sure.
That's my guess. And so he was parked about 50 feet north of this little viewing area. And there, Mr. Dunn apparently had some difficulty turning the car around.
Oh, God.
So Mrs. Dunn must have screamed as she realized he had backed them off of the edge of the canyon.
Oh, my goodness.
And they were, in fact, falling vertically down this canyon.
I'm guessing that Louise did scream.
I mean, it's a good guess.
I mean, even if she didn't, who's going to tell me I'm wrong?
Nobody. So, John, the car fell 100 feet and bounced mercilessly for another nearly vertical 100 feet. Finally lodging at the foot of the ledge. Unfortunately,
I don't
John,
know how shocks worked in 1924, but I just I'm guessing that you could go to Napa Auto Parts and get like 100,000 times better protection than the Dunns had.
Probably.
They may well be done.
So
after 200 feet.
So, John, the car got wedged in the ledge.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately,
oh,
the two bodies continued downward.
No, so they were thrown from the vehicle.
They were thrown. The bodies continued rolling and bouncing off numerous pinnacles and rock outcrops, and continued until they landed some 800 feet below.
Oh my God! They fell 1,000 feet. They had the benefit of the car for the first 200. And then that was taken away. Oh, they didn't know how good they had it for those first 200 feet. Kat.
I'm going to read you this next quote. Okay. The author of this book actually wrote this and put it in the book.
Oh boy.
Mr. and Mrs. Dunn were mangled and broken and quite dead.
I mean,
thanks, man.
Were they mostly dead?
An eyewitness pronounced it due to inexperience and carelessness when trying to explain how the fuck this guy did this.
Okay, listen, and they talk about women drivers, right?
Thank
I
you.
mean, come on. If Louise had been at the wheel, I bet that would not have happened.
I fucking agree, John.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Yep.
The final consensus was that Mr. Dunn was simultaneously attempting to turn around in a dangerous place while backing riskily toward the canyon.
Well, I wonder what would have led them to that conclusion.
I mean, listen.
I mean, wow, it's amazing. The physics involved in figuring out that he was probably backing over the canyon.
Here's the canyon wall. Here's the canyon.
Yeah.
Here's the car.
Right.
We think what happened was he backed over the canyon.
I don't know, Kat. I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Where's your evidence?
Yeah. I mean,
anyway.
I think there were aliens. There was a tractor beam involved.
There was an owl that swooped down and attacked him.
Yep. That's what happened. I'm never satisfied with the obvious explanation for anything.
Good for you. Oh, never stop asking questions, John.
Okay, Mulder.
And some of the sections of this book that we're not going to talk about. Death by poisonous gas.
Oh,
by avalanche. By missiles from above, which is what he calls the chapter about falling trees.
Missiles from above. I like it. I mean, anything. That's the thing. Missile has a very clear definition in most people's minds, but really, it's a ballistic projectile.
Yeah. Well, they call those when branches or limbs fall, they call those widowmakers.
They do. Deadfall. Widowmakers.
Yeah, that's it. You don't have any kind of warning.
I think that's sexist. I think what if it's a widower maker? What if that branch falls on a woman who has a male husband?
Yeah. What about that?
What about that? Stick that.
And then there's a whole other part of this book about people who have been killed by humans in the park, which we're not going to get into because that's not funny.
No. I mean, it could be if we told it. I mean, if we put our special sauce on it,
we could probably
make that funny.
Yeah, we could probably figure it out.
Yep. I mean, the thing is, I feel like if you ask, there's the old thing, if you ask Siri, where's the best place to bury a body? I feel like saying in a national park might not be the worst answer. I mean, what if you just kill them and then throw them in one of those hot pots that they have out there? Yeah.
Or
oh no, he jumped in after the dog. Oh, now I got to throw the dog in too.
Or, you're going up to you're going to the Grand View and you're standing there and you accidentally push your partner over the side.
Oh, no. What was it? See, I only remember her name and I don't remember his name. What, Mr. Dunn.
Oh, the Dunns.
Yeah, I know. Her name was Louise.
It was.
And her maiden name was Thin.
Was it Phil?
Phil. Exactly.
Do you care what his name was?
I don't.
Okay.
I was just making
I
a
can
point.
look it up.
I was trying to high road you. It's a thing.
It's not hard to do that.
Whatever.
Earl. His name was Earl.
Earl Dunn.
Earl Dunn.
Wow.
Anyway. Well, listen, hopefully hopefully this was as delightful as I had thought it was going to be.
It absolutely was. Now, if only we could get the former vice president of the United States to go to a national park. I would love that.
Yeah.
To have some Pence flavored ramen. I mean, what?
Nothing.
Nothing? I'm sorry.
Nope. I got nothing.
Was that the easy joke? It wasn't.
No, it's fine.
I want you to know it wasn't easy for you to listen to or for me to say. So, yeah. No, I love this. I think, we need to maybe plan out, there've been a couple of times where we find a website or a book or something specific.
Definitely.
What was the name of the book one more time, just so we make sure we're given credit?
Death in Yellowstone. Accidents and Foolhardiness in the First National Park by Lee H. Whittlesey.
Nice. And I still don't think that's
fair enough. It's the second edition. Get the second edition.
Oh, yeah.
Because he adds a bunch of horrible deaths.
Right. The first edition doesn't have near the graphic content.
No, not at all.
Nope.
And before we sign off, I will say I did look into Grand Canyon. Horrible stories out of Grand Canyon. Sure. Please, people, don't take selfies at the edge of the canyon. Don't ever don't ever step over a barrier. It's there for a reason. Stay away from the edge. The picture's never gonna be that good anyway.
Here's the thing, Kat. Just so, as someone who was just days ago was there are plenty of places where you don't have to step over anything. You're just
just
there.
there.
Just there.
Yeah, just stay away from the edge, please.
Let the camera do the focus. Don't. If somebody says back up, don't do it.
Don't back up.
Don't back up.
Don't back up.
No. Don't take your kids to Yellowstone. And if somebody tells you to back up at either the Grand Canyon or the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, in neither case should you go in reverse. Okay.
Do not do it.
It's been done by the Duns. It's been done by the
They
others.
are dunzo.
They're done. Dunzo. Yeah.
Don't do that. Please be careful out there. Just don't, you know what? Don't go anywhere. Just stay home and watch. There's Grand Canyon, 4K drone videos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. That's a big thing. There's all kinds of signs saying no drones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
At the Grand Canyon. Yeah. Did the pandemic teach you nothing? Stay home.
Stay home. Much safer.
That way it's nice and not as crowded at the Grand Canyon.
As long as your internet works.
Exactly.
Just don't fire your gardener.
I got to fire my gardener. All right. Full circle. First circle. I love you, Kat.
I love you, John.
This has been fun.
This has been good.
It's been nice fun. It's also the first time we've had an actual a week off because we recorded 2 before. And so it's like, oh, I miss Kat so much. I miss her twice as much as I normally do.
There you go.
Because she'll only talk to me if we're making a podcast. I think you should know. She can only stand my company if we're creating some art out of it.
100%.
I think this is art. I think so. Yeah. So we've come to that time, Kat. That special time.
It's
when we pay homage to that special Hoosier. So, fuck Mike Pence.
Fuck Mike Pence. Hey,
Audio
boom, 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 boom.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Boom, 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 boom. Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, 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 pew.